A couple of weeks ago, I made a video on the Milwaukee Bucks and the potential that Giannis might end up leaving that franchise sooner rather than later.
I can see myself being in Milwaukee Bucks for the rest of my career. But the moment I feel like people are not committed as I am to get that golden thing in the back, I am not. I'm a Milwaukee Buck, but most importantly, I'm a winner. I want to win, and I have to do whatever it takes for me to win. And if there's a better situation for me to win the Larry O'Brien, I have to take that better situation.
Well, it's safe to say that Milwaukee's front office responded. Real quick before I get into this video, if you end up enjoying it, please be sure to subscribe. Also drop a like. It only takes 1 second and it makes a massive difference in how the video performs in the YouTube algorithm. So let me take you back to the offseason of 2020. The Milwaukee Bucks have lost in disappointing fashion in the NBA playoffs yet again, and this was primarily due to a lack of help around Giannis. Now don't get me wrong, there were things that Giannis absolutely could have done better, but having Eric Bledsoe out there completely bricking everything that he threw up just completely made the offense for Milwaukee disastrous. Not to mention Chris Middleton wasn't really playing well in that series, so things needed to change, and unfortunately at the time for Milwaukee, they also needed to bring back Giannis, which made the timing of everything quite awkward. Because of the lack of a good roster around him, Giannis chose not to extend with the Milwaukee Bucks because of the years of disappointment. So then, in the 2020 offseason, they traded for Jrue Holiday. Following that trade, he would re-sign with the Milwaukee Bucks, and as we all know, they would win a championship in 2021. Since then, the playoff disappointment has returned, and a lack of help for Giannis has played somewhat of a part of it. Mostly due to injury, to be fair, but nevertheless, 2 years removed from their title, and the Bucks do not have another one. They made it to Game 7 of the second round in 2022, and they probably would have made it to the finals from there if they had won that series, but Chris Middleton did not play, and Jrue Holiday had to be the team's second option, and that didn't really work out. And then obviously they got destroyed by Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat in round 1 this previous year. With the long-term implications of the health of Chris Middleton, as well as Brook getting up there in age and Jrue Holiday being a severe playoff dropper, the future for the Bucks didn't exactly look great. And an important thing to take note of here is I really cannot emphasize enough how much the Bucks kind of stumbled into their 2021 championship. Don't get me wrong, this is not me trying to take credit away from the Bucks or saying they don't deserve the title, because they absolutely do. What I am referring to is that it was an ugly road to get there. They got there, but they didn't get there in a pretty fashion. They didn't get there in a way that was like, oh, well, this team's just gonna win multiple championships. They won the title, but not all that convincingly. But generally, when a team wins a championship, from there, especially from a front office perspective, they settle. We did our job. We brought Milwaukee a title for the first time since Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, so job's finished, we can chill. Most front offices would bank purely on running it back, and even if it didn't work out a year or 2 or 3 or 4, they would still keep running it back with the same core, because of course this was a championship core beforehand. But with the flimsy nature in which they won that title, in terms of just stumbling their way there, it didn't really lead to a lot of confidence for their ability to replicate it. And with Jrue Holiday, Brook Lopez, and Chris Middleton all being past 30, Brook being really over 35 or near that, which is pretty close to being over the hill for most careers, especially for centers, it didn't look like that core was even going to have that many more chances at this thing. So Giannis saw this lack of a future that Milwaukee had, and he made some cryptic comments, and again, he delayed extending with the Bucks. And now, well, after those cryptic comments, after the threat of Giannis potentially leaving leaving once again struck fear in the heart of that front office, well, they went and made probably the best trade in the franchise's history, at least since Oscar Robertson, and that's a pretty big freaking deal. Now, Giannis hasn't signed an extension yet. I believe he said he wants to do that next summer just because of like financial implications, but I'm pretty sure it's safe to say that he's satisfied with having Damian Lillard on his team. And me personally, I think that the push and pull that exists between Giannis and the Bucks front office is the exact way that the relationship between a superstar and his front office should exist. There is a push and pull that needs to exist. Things cannot always be sunshine and rainbows. There is a business element to all of this, one where I think both sides have operated exactly as they should. As a superstar with title aspirations, Giannis needs to make sure that his front office is in check and making the moves necessary to collect those trophies. Making comments like he did in the clip in the intro to the media, being transparent without trashing the front office. It applies pressure without being sloppy, without making it like a big deal. Giannis was making comments directly to the media about questioning his future in Milwaukee, but he managed to do it in a way that it wasn't even really that big of news. And the Bucks front office didn't act like a bunch of crybaby bitches as front offices have the tendency to do, and they did what they must do to keep their superstar. You especially have to consider the small market element of this here. When you're a small market team, you really only get a Giannis type of player organically through the draft. You're not really bringing stars and especially superstar players to Milwaukee, typically speaking, and the only way you're going to do that is through attracting them with another superstar, whether that be through signing or trade, as they did with Damian Lillard, obviously. But getting a player like Giannis is something that happens once in a blue moon for a franchise. Ever since Kareem Abdul-Jabbar left the Bucks, they have been chasing that superstar tier guy forever. And they finally got him, and they've done the necessary work to make sure that they keep him, something that a lot of small market franchises do not do. Oftentimes, the front offices seem to have these egos about them where they think they're above the player. Now, that doesn't mean that I think every front office should just cater to what every superstar wishes, because sometimes that means the players are essentially making the moves, and players often make for terrible GMs, especially as they're currently playing. They don't always know what's best for them. Like, LeBron James is a basketball genius in every capacity, and he also like absolutely signed off on the Russell Westbrook trade. So come on. So essentially, as the superstar, Giannis did his job to put pressure on that front office, and the front office did its job to react to that accordingly and make the proper moves to, as I mentioned, keep collecting trophies. They did that when they traded for Drew in 2020, and they did that when they traded him for Dame in 2023. Both sides of this equation are happy, all for the better of the franchise, all for the better of the fan base, and all for the better for winning. And if I was a Milwaukee Bucks fan, I personally would just be absolutely thrilled with the dynamic that exists between Giannis and the front office, and I think it should be a model for pretty much every other franchise in the league. Unfortunately, a sour and dysfunctional relationship between superstar and front office tends to be the rule more than the exception, so I wanted to give praise to Milwaukee for being that exception. Shout out to Rudy for editing this video, and goodbye.